And I'll tell you this too, man, because as women make more and more money and become more and more successful, there's a consequence to that, unfortunately. And that is your pool of suitable candidates is going to shrink, because the reason why Tommy Lahren went on that big rant as a multi-millionaire successful woman, as a successful woman that's worth, $2-3 million, her pool of candidates is really small. And here's the problem that successful women don't understand. The guys that you're chasing, that you want, that satisfy your hypergamous needs, those guys can date down. You can't, though. So they're basically playing a skewed game that's in the male's favor when it comes to high value. And like those guys will bang you. They'll deal with you on a romantic sense temporarily, but they're not really going to commit to you. You know what I mean? Because when a guy works so hard and actually it gets to a point where he's able to select women, I'm kind of like at this point right now in my life, there's no way that you're going to settle down, because it took so much to get to that point that you're not going to sit. I always use this analogy. So there's a candy store, right? Girls are allowed to come in as soon as they turn 18, and they're able to pick as much candy as they want. They can stay there, get as much candy as they want. The boys, however, can't get in until they're about 30 years old, and they have a certain amount of money saved up to get in the candy store. So by the time you get into the candy store 12, 15 years later, and the chicks have already been there since 18, you're going to go crazy. Oh my God, I need all this candy. And the chicks are going to look at you like, oh, what's wrong with you? It's just candy. But the women don't understand that you waited out there for a decade plus to get in this candy store while they were already in with their one little lollipop. You're over here taking all the chocolate, everything, because it took a while and you had to earn getting in the candy store. So when you do get in there, there's no way you're going to subject yourself to just one piece of candy. You're going to go nuts. And women don't understand that, because women fundamentally do not understand the plight of men. And going back to application, when I'm on dates, just to collect data so I can share with you, Rollo, I love to ask women, what percentage of men do you think are sexually active? What percentage of men do you think actually are out here meeting women? You know what all these girls tell me, man? 80%, 90%, 100%, etc. And it goes to show, like, and then I'll tell them, well, do you know that maybe 10 to 20% of guys are actually sexually active? And they're like, what? And they're like, they can't believe it. And then I'm like, well, think of every time a guy approached you in a club and failed miserably and he was strange about it. It's like, okay, you know what? Now it makes sense. But the solipsism doesn't allow them to understand that men truly have to be made, and it takes us much longer to get to where we want to go. But they think we're on the same mating schedule that they're on, where we should be trying to settle down at 30. And it doesn't work that way, because for a man to be attractive, it takes us so long to get to that point. So by the time we're 35, now we're the 18-year-old, we're in the candy store, we want to go nuts just like they did when they got in. So it's just very interesting to see that how women truly do not understand the plight of men, man, at all, like whatsoever.
And you're probably aware of my infamous market value peak years graph by now. I did that graph as kind of like a joke at one point, because I kept seeing all of these infographics, and so I put that out there. And really, what it is in a nutshell, it's women hit their sexual market value peak right around 23, and men hit their sexual market value peak right around, if they live up to their potential, they hit their peak right around 35, 36, somewhere in there. I've seen the Huffington Post, of all places, say that men hit their sexual peak at 50, or sexual market value peak at 50, which I think is completely overblown. And then a lot of guys will say, no way, man, when I was 25, I was in much better shape, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, that's only one aspect of what makes you valuable to women, because women's their sexual strategy, their mating strategy is different from men. As I said, men's is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. For women, it's hypergamy. It's, I want the hottest guy who's the funnest to have sex with and is the best sexual experience for short-term sex breeding perspective, and then also the long-term, who's the best investment for my long-term security guy. So those are the two. Like, women tend to be interested in quality. They are what biology and mating strategy, they would be called K-selected. Men are R-selected.
Yes.
Our sexual strategy, our innate strategy is R-selection. Breed a lot. Bang as much as you can. Our biology actually, like, what is it? John talks about this all the time. Ejaculate and evacuate. We laugh at that, but that's a result of men's innate mating strategy. It's in our biological evolutionary advantage that we have a lot of sex. That's why we have a higher libido. That's why testosterone makes us aggressive. That's why we, when you're a young man and when you're like in your teens and the wind blows and you get a hard on, that's why, because that's what you evolved to do. And that's why guys have trouble with right now because it's so widely available. For women, it's quality. It's looking for the K selection. It's looking for the best of the best. Is he the best I can do? And so when women are at their peak, which is at right around 23, they have the potential to have the most of the things, the most of the aspects that make them the most desirable to men of any age. When you look at the, I don't know if you've looked at the data from Dataclysm. There's a really great book called Dataclysm. It was stats that have, and they're probably even newer, fresher stats now, but from, was it Match.com or from the Tinder profiles and things like that, that men tend to prefer the look of, or the, the appearance they find the most attractive. The age they find women most attractive is 23. It doesn't change. From 15 to 90, men find 23-year-old girls they're most attractive.
And here's the thing, men have not changed really, Rollo. It's funny because like women always talk about men this, men that. Men haven't changed. We've always looked for the same things in women. We've always wanted a woman that's like submissive, attractive, young, fertile, etc. What's really changed is women have changed, because the thing is that women are basically the buyers in the sexual marketplace. So as they've become more and more successful, they've gotten more and more access to more men, and they've made more and more money. They're incapable of dating down. So what's happened? Their metrics of what an attractive mate is have changed. The days, I always say it all the time, the days of making, $30,000 a year and have driving your Kia Sophia with a good insurance policy, that's not good enough anymore for a lot of women, because women make their own money. So just like you say, the beta is handled. So what's left? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's really where we have developed now the global sex marketplace. It started out as a local marketplace, but for women, again, it's like, is he the best I can do? Whereas for men, it's like, how many can I get? Yeah. And I knew you mentioned this earlier in this show, is like a lot of guys, they change their, but obviously we know this, all guys can't facilitate that mating strategy, their innate mating strategy. So they have to adapt and find ways around that. So if you're going to be in the game, you've got to find some way to adapt to it. And if you want to know why, human men are more interested in things than people, if you want to know why we are the innovators and the developers and the growers and the builders in this world, it's because we have the root of that is trying to find a way to seem like the best selection for that woman. What you described was called in Evo Psych is called the strategic pluralism theory.
Yes.
So if you are the top 10, top 20% of guys who are the naturals, like the hot guy in the foam can party, like Chad, right? Giga Chad, right? That guy would be like of the according to, face maxers or looks maxers, Giga Chad would be the top 1% of guys, right? He just looks good. He's got everything that he's like a cartoon character of masculinity. So if you got that, if you just say he's the apex of all that, then the 80% that goes on down, those guys, the 80%ers, the blue pill guys, the beta guys, they have to find, historically, those guys have had to find some way to adapt if they wanted to reproduce. That's why you get monogamy. That's why you get marriage. That's why you get guys who will, there's some theories that say that that's what developed creative intelligence in men. Is if I can build a better house, if I can play a better song, if I can paint a better picture, if I can build things, if I can do things that provide, that show, exemplify, like confirm that I have all of these great qualities for beta and long-term security, women will choose me eventually. Maybe they bang somebody else, but eventually they'll pick me because I have all these great qualities and I'm a good catch. And so that's really what strategic pluralism theory is about. The guys who can't be in the 20%, the top 20%, the 80% of guys who are considered unattractive by women, they have to find some other way to solve their reproductive problems. And so what they do is they invest themselves in one woman. That's how you get guys who are like serial monogamists, because it seems like the easiest, most adaptive way to do it. And guess what? In 2020, we have commercialized that instinct, the strategic pluralist instinct, which is I put all of my efforts into one woman, all of my reproductive efforts into one girl. I'm the best father. I've got a great job. I made partner. I've got all of these great things. And you want to know why I say that men's peak sexual market value era is right around 35, 36, 37. That's when guys have the most potential to have all of those things. They're still good looking. If they stay on top of their game, they're still, if they're still they have the maturity. Women tend to look for guys who are older than they are, anywhere between 3 and 7 years older than them. That's statistically, that's right about where it's at. And the reason for that is because
years younger than me. Like all the girls I date are like 8 to 9 years younger than me. So you're spot on. Oh yeah.
Men who are older, because men who are older, it's perceived that they have all of those things. Whether it's true or not makes no difference. The perception, the hindbrain perception, is that an older man will be more mature and will have more of the things that I'm going to need in the long term, and hopefully have some of the stuff that I want to have in the short term. So when I say 35, 36, that's not just some arbitrary number I pulled out of my ass. I'm saying that's the point where guys are hitting their stride. And that's the point where guys need to hold off from monogamy, because that will be the point in your life where you have the most selection in your life. Like you said, the candy store analogy right there. Mm-hmm. So when you get to be 35, 36, 37, maybe a little earlier, maybe a little later, depends on when you're hitting your stride. That's when you have a better judge of character. That's when you can say, I want the 22-year-old. I want the 26-year-old. I can have it now because I've got more of what women really find attractive, which, physically, yes, but they're also looking for other qualities as well. They're looking for congruency. They're looking for dominance. They're looking for competency. They're looking for provisioning. They're looking for long-term security. They're looking for Giga Chad, yes. And the years in which you will have the most potential for those things is probably your mid-30s.
Agreed.
And guys want to throw rock. Like, oh, I can't believe you said that. If you go and you look at, and I looked these stats up for book 4, the average age of marriage since the time of the sexual revolution has gone, like right around 1965, the average age of marriage was about 21 or 22 years old for men, and it was like 18 or 19 for women. Today, it's 29.8 for men, and it is 28.7 for women. What changed? What miraculous thing fell from the heavens? No, it's gynocentrism. It's prioritizing women's mating strategy at the cost of men's mating strategy. And as a result, we wait longer and longer and longer and longer until we get married. And for women, that's really rough, because biologically, my biological clock is ticking. No, your biological clock was ticking when you were 22. Not when you're 28. Your odds of conception and carrying a pregnancy to term decline precipitously after 29, 30 years old.
Facts.
And having a good, healthy baby on top of that.